This video is about the mom entered the garden and a millionaire offered his help. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts and comments. The crisp morning air clung to her skin like a gentle reminder of the season's change as Mia stepped through the wrought iron gates of her late grandmother's estate. She had inherited more than just a sprawling garden. It was a tapestry of memories woven with laughter and whispered secrets. Mia hadn't visited since the funeral, each visit after the bitter loss reminding her of the warmth that had once filled these very walls. Now, only shadows linger. She brushed her fingers along the faded peonies that bowed their heads under the weight of neglect. "I guess I am the caretaker now," she muttered to herself, a half-hearted smile flickering across her lips. The garden was a wild, untamed thing compared to its former glory. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice urging her to bring it back to life. As she knelt to pull up the stubborn weeds that had overtaken her grandmother's beloved roses, a sudden rustling nearby caught her attention. She paused, a sense of being watched creeping over her. Turning her head, she was met with the sight of a tall, striking man standing just a few paces away, his expression a mix of curiosity and amusement. "You need a hand," he offered, his voice smooth like the first sip of a fine wine. Mia blinked, taken aback. She wasn't accustomed to strangers appearing in her sanctuary, especially not one who looked as effortlessly polished as he did. The stale navy blazer contrasted sharply with the overgrown garden, as she wondered briefly how he'd even found the time to venture into what seemed like a forgotten realm. "Is it that obvious?" she asked, a hint of laughter escaping as she motioned towards the chaos surrounding her. "Just a hunch," he replied, stepping closer. "You should see the state of my own yard. I have a team of landscapers on speed dial." She raised an eyebrow. "Landscapers? You must be doing quite well for yourself." He chuckled, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Let us just say I prefer to spend my time in boardrooms rather than backyards." Mia's curiosity piqued. "And what brings you here, Mr. Boardroom?" "Call me Ethan. I live next door." He gestured toward the expansive mansion visible through the trees. "I noticed the garden from my balcony. It used to be quite beautiful, didn't it?" "Beautiful is an understatement." She sighed, her heart aching a little. "This place was magical once. I am just trying to bring it back to life." "I can help with that," he offered, an earnest light in his blue eyes. "I may not know much about gardening, but I can at least provide the muscle." Mia hesitated, self-doubt creeping in. "I don't want to impose. You seem rather busy." "Not too busy to help a neighbor in need," Ethan responded, his tone laced with charm. "Plus, it is an excuse to escape the confines of my own life for a while." His honesty struck a chord with Mia. She sensed an undertone of weariness in his words, something that echoed her own feelings of being overwhelmed. "All right, but no guarantees. I want to put you to work." With a mischievous grin, he approached, rolling up the sleeves of his blazer. "I wouldn't want it any other way." For the next hour, they worked side by side, laughter filling the air as they swapped stories about their lives. Mia learned that Ethan had inherited his wealth from a tech empire, but he spoke of it with a disarming humility, his focus more on the lessons he'd learned than the money itself. "Sometimes I think all this," Ethan gestured around, "is merely a distraction from what truly matters." "What does truly matter, then?" Mia challenged, intrigued. "Connection," he replied thoughtfully. "Experiences shared with others, moments that make you laugh until you cry or remind you that you are not alone." Mia's heart quickened at his words. There was something about him, his openness, his willingness to share, that drew her in. Yet, the flickering shadow of her late grandmother loomed large, reminding her that she couldn't allow herself to be swept away so easily. "Ethan, I appreciate your help, but I don't want you to feel obligated," she said, carefully choosing her words. "This garden is personal for me." "I get that," he said, sincerity lacing his voice. "But I want to be here. I want to help." As the sun climbed higher, painting the garden in a golden hue, the air between them thickened with an unspoken tension. Whenever their hands brushed while reaching for the same tool, a spark igniting her cheeks with warmth. Each shared glance felt electric, as if the world around them had faded away. "I can see why your grandmother cherished this space," Ethan mused, kneeling beside her to prune a stubborn branch. "There is beauty here, waiting to be uncovered." Mia bit her lip, fighting back a wave of emotion. "I just wish I could have one more day with her. I think she would have loved to see this garden flourish again." "Maybe she does, in her own way," he said softly, meeting her gaze with surprising intensity. "Sometimes those we lose leave behind pieces of themselves to guide us." They fell into a moment of silence, each processing the weight of their words. Mia glanced away, her heart racing. The air was thick with unvoiced feelings, a strange mix of sadness and burgeoning desire. Finally, Ethan broke the tension with a light chuckle. I know this might sound ridiculous, but I think we should name the garden. Name it? Mia echoed, unsure where he was going with this. Yeah, something that captures its spirit, like the Garden of Second Chances or the Revival Sanctuary. Mia laughed, the sound breaking the heavy mood. Those are quite dramatic, maybe something simpler would suffice. Okay, how about the Secret Garden? He suggested, mischief dancing in his eyes. Very original, she teased. But I think that name is already taken. Fair point, he admitted, flashing her that disarming smile that made her heart skip. What do you think of me, Eden? Her breath caught. That S actually sweet. Good, it has settled then. He leaned back, looking around with newfound enthusiasm. Me Eden it will be, and together we'll make it beautiful again. They worked late into the afternoon, their playful banter marking the hours. Mia found herself stealing glances at Ethan more often than she intended, captivated by the way he threw himself into the work with abandon. Just as they were about to take a break, Ethan suddenly froze, his gaze fixed over her shoulder. You might want to turn around. Curious, Mia turned to see a sleek black SUV pulling up at the entrance of the estate. The door swung open, and a tall woman in designer heels stepped out, her presence commanding. She was impeccably styled, her hair cascading in waves and her expression a mixture of determination and annoyance. Ethan, she called, her voice cutting through the tranquility of the garden. Mia's heart sank, an unexpected wave of jealousy washing over her. It took her a moment to realize who this woman was. Sophie, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, a name that had surfaced in hushed conversations. Great timing, Ethan muttered under his breath, his expression shifting to one of irritation. Just what we need, Mia murmured, her heart racing as a knot formed in her stomach. Hey, I'll be right back, Ethan said, rising to his feet. Just give me a moment. As he walked towards Sophie, Mia's mind swirled with uncertainty. What was she doing here? And why did the sight of them together make her feel so conflicted? She watched from a distance, the air thick with tension and unspoken words, her heart pounding with questions that remained unanswered. Mia's hands trembled slightly as she knelt in the garden, pulling at the weeds with renewed determination. Watching Ethan stride over to meet Sophie, she felt as if a storm brewed just beyond the horizon. The easy laughter they had shared mere moments before echoed in her mind, but now it felt distant and fragile. Sophie stood with her hands on her hips, her high-end outfit starkly contrasting the earthy surroundings. Ethan, she began, her voice sharp yet laced with a forced sweetness. I thought we agreed to meet for lunch. Ethan's posture stiffened, the warmth in his expression evaporating. I didn't forget Sophie, but I am helping Mia with her garden. He gestured awkwardly to Mia. It's a bit of a mess, and she could use the extra hand. Mia felt the weight of Sophie's gaze upon her, assessing and critical. Mia, the heir to the estate? Sophie's tone was both incredulous and condescending as she tilted her head just slightly. Yeah, that's me, Mia replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You're brave to take on this project alone, Sophie said, a hint of sarcasm lacing her words. But it's just a garden, I am sure it's not that hard. Mia's stomach churned, and before she could respond, Ethan interjected, actually, it's a lot more than that. It's important to her, and I wanted to help. Sophie's eyes narrowed, a flicker of irritation crossing her features. Right, of course. And here I thought we were trying to work on our relationship. Mia felt the heat rise in her cheeks. Relationship? Was that what this was? The two of them had seemed so easy, so natural together, but now the reality of Ethan's past loomed like an ominous cloud. I'll be with you in a minute, Ethan said, his voice strained. Just let me wrap this up. Sophie crossed her arms, the tension thickening as she studied Mia. Well, it looks like you were in good hands then. Yeah, we were just pruning, Mia said, an edge of defensiveness creeping into her tone. Oh, I can see that, Sophie replied, her lips curling into a smirk. You know, I didn't realize Ethan was so generous with his time. Mia's heart raced at the double meaning in Sophie's words. Generosity? Did she mean something more? With a quiet determination, Mia turned her attention back to the branches she had been cutting, trying to ignore the rising tide of insecurity within her. This is stupid, she thought, forcing herself to focus. I barely know him. Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts. Mia, how does this prune look to you? He held up a branch, his brows furrowed in concentration as he tried to impress her with his gardening skills. It looks, a bit overdone, she teased, a small smile breaking through her early discomfort. But maybe that's just your style. Ethan laughed, his eyes brightening. What can I say? I like to go big or go home. Sophie rolled her eyes dramatically, and May caught the look of disdain she cast toward Ethan. You always did have a soft spot for damsels in distress, she remarked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Is that what you think this is? Ethan asked, his voice rising slightly. May's breath hitched as the tension between the two crackled. She could see the frustration building in Ethan, and for a fleeting moment she felt a pang of sympathy for him. Just stating facts, Sophie retorted, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Ethan took a deep breath, visibly trying to rein in his irritation. This isn't tea about you, Sophie, it is about helping Mia. The silence stretched as Sophie studied him, her expression shifting from annoyance to something softer, almost vulnerable. You didn't have to get involved, you know. I wanted to, Ethan replied, his voice firm yet gentle. Mia means something to me. Mia's heart fluttered at his words, a bittersweet pang of hope and apprehension coursing through her veins. Did he really mean that? Or was it merely a fleeting moment between them? Well, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised, Sophie said quietly, her voice losing some of its edge. You've always had a weakness for helping those in need. Mia shifted uncomfortably, caught in the crossfire of their unresolved history. Maybe I should just go inside, she muttered, feeling unwanted. No, Ethan said quickly, glancing over his shoulder at her. Please don't, this is your garden. You should feel at home here. Bright, Mia said, forcing herself to meet his gaze. But I don't want to intrude on your conversation. It is okay, we're done, Ethan said, turning his attention back to Sophie. I'll talk to you later. Sophie gave a small, dismissive huff before walking away, leaving the air still charged with the remnants of their exchange. May felt an uncomfortable mix of relief and tension as she returned to pruning the branches. That was awkward, she said, trying to lighten the mood. I could feel the daggers she was throwing, Ethan replied, his voice low and amused. But if it helps, I'd rather be here with you than deal with whatever she wants. Mia's heart swelled, but doubt shadowed her thoughts. You don't have to feel obligated to stay, you know. Ethan knelt beside her, gazing at her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. It is not obligation, I genuinely want to help, and I want to be here with you. Her gaze met his, and for a moment the world around them faded entirely. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, all became background noise to their connection. Thank you, Mia whispered, her voice thick with emotion. This means more to me than you know. No, thank you for letting me be a part of this, he replied, his expression softening. I am glad to see you fighting for something that matters. Mia felt something shift in the air, a magnetic pull drawing them closer. She could sense the chemistry simmering between them, painting their unspoken words in vivid colors. Hey, Mia. Ethan broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. Yeah. Can I ask you something? Of course. If you could have one day with your grandmother again, what would you want to do? It was a simple question, yet it struck deep. I do want to walk through this garden with her, like we used to, Mia said, her heart aching with the memory. I do ask her for advice on everything, not just the garden. Ethan nodded, his gaze unwavering. That is beautiful. I think she'd be proud of you for wanting to revive this place. Mia felt warmth spread through her, knowing she wasn't alone in her emotions. Do you ever miss anyone? Yes, Ethan admitted, his expression becoming distant. My father passed away a few years ago. It has been hard, you know, he was my anchor. I am sorry, Mia said softly, her heart aching for him. It must have been tough. It was. I often wonder if he would have liked the person Ivy become. Mia's heart raced at the vulnerability in his words, the raw honesty illuminating the space between them. You're a good man, Ethan. I think he would have been proud of you. He smiled, and despite the heaviness of their conversation, his eyes sparkled with something deeper, something that felt like the promise of connection. Mia, he began, his tone shifting slightly. Can I ask you something else? Sure. Do you think we could do this again? Like, maybe dinner sometime? Maybe after we finish the garden? Her heart soared. I do like that. Great. He grinned, looking genuinely pleased. And maybe we can even choose a date to celebrate the reopening of Mia's Eden. Sounds like a plan, she replied, her voice teasing. He leaned in closer, and for a moment it felt as if the distance between them was negligible, their hearts beating in sync. Just know that I am not afraid of hard work. I am committed to helping you with this, and I am looking forward to what comes next. The words hung in the air, filled with unspoken possibilities. Mia met his gaze, feeling the tension between them like a live wire, sparking with excitement and apprehension. But just as she felt ready to bridge the final gap, a sudden shout broke through the moment. "Ethan!" They turned in unison to see Sophie standing at the garden gate once more, her expression fierce. "We need to talk." Mia's heart sank. The moment had slipped away like grains of sand through her fingers, and she could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her once more. Mia's heart raced as Sophie called out to Ethan, urgency in her voice slicing through the delicate tension that had just begun to crystallize between them. They were both caught off guard, and she couldn't shake off the feeling that this was no ordinary conversation. Ethan's expression shifted, irritation flickering across his features. "In just a minute, Sophie," he called back, his tongue clipped. He turned to Mia, his eyes lingering on her for a moment longer than necessary. "I'll be right back." "Okay," she replied, trying to sound casual, though her heart felt heavy. Ethan walked towards Sophie, who stood with her arms crossed, her impatience palpable. Mia watched as the two of them exchanged words. Each gesture and inflection sent waves of confusion crashing over her. She couldn't deny the pang of jealousy that twisted in her chest, a feeling she hadn't anticipated at all. "What is going on?" Ethan asked, attempting to keep his voice steady. Sophie's expression was a blend of frustration and determination. "I am not leaving without a proper conversation. Can we at least talk about it?" "Not here," he interrupted, glancing back at Mia as if seeking her permission. "Can we keep this out of the garden?" Mia felt a surge of anxiety at being the focus of their unresolved history. She busied herself with the pruning shears, slicing through branches with more energy than was necessary. Each snip felt like an act of defiance against the unexpected intrusion. "Fine," Sophie said, her voice sharp, but there was a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "But I need to understand where we stand, Ethan." "Mia, can you give us a moment?" Ethan asked, his gaze resting on her, imploring. Mia hesitated, feeling like a trespasser in her own sanctuary. "Sure," she replied, forcing a smile before retreating to a spot further down the garden path. She focused her attention on a patch of wildflowers, willing herself to concentrate. The air thickened with tension, and Mia felt the distance stretch between them. She could hear snippets of their conversation, but the words drifted like autumn leaves, unable to settle in her mind. "She's just a project for you, isn't she?" Sophie's voice cut through, laced with accusation. Mia's heart sank. The accusation stung. Was that all she was to Ethan, a distraction from his past? "No, that is not it at all," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "This isn't just about gardening for me, it is about her, she matters." Mia's breath caught. The sincerity in his tone had an intoxicating effect, flooding her with warmth. Yet the shadow of doubt lingered. Did he truly see her, or was she simply a temporary escape from the world he was trying to avoid? As she knelt among the petals, picking at weeds, she couldn't help but think of her grandmother. What would she say? "Mia, darling, don't let jealousy cloud your heart. Love is a garden, and it needs nurturing, just like this one. Can we just talk later?" Ethan said, his voice softer now. Mia leaned in closer, curious about his expression, but Sophie's interruption pulled her back, and she felt a creeping sense of unease. "Later, you read too wrapped up in her," Sophie scoffed, her tone bitter. "You always fly off to save the damsel in distress. It is class, Ethan." Mia clenched her jaw, every word slicing through her resolve. What did Sophie see in her? A weak woman who needed saving. Enough, Ethan snapped, his frustration palpable. "I am not saving anyone. This is about friendship, Sophie, something you never seem to understand." Mia's heart raced at his defense, a rush of warmth sparking in her chest at the thought that he was willing to stand up for her. "Fine, if that is how you see it," Sophie said coolly, raising her hands in mock surrender. "Just remember, I am not waiting around forever." The silence that followed felt heavy, the remnants of their exchange hanging in the air. Mia could sense Ethan's tension, the way his shoulders relaxed slightly as he turned back toward her. "Mia," Ethan called softly, glancing back to see if she was okay. She plastered on a smile, determined to shake off the unease. "Yeah." "Can we?" He hesitated, casting a sidelong glance at Sophie, who was now standing with her arms crossed, watching them intently. "Can we continue where we left off?" "Sure, I'd like that," she said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. Ethan walked back toward her, the tension palpable in the air. "I am sorry about that," he said, his tone sincere. "Sophie doesn't understand." "Understand what?" Mia asked, her curiosity piqued. "That you were helping me?" Exactly. Ethan's gaze held hers, the sincerity in his eyes making her heart flutter. It's more than just a garden for me, it's about connecting. Mia felt her cheeks warm, both from his words and the lingering uncertainty. I get that, she replied, choosing her words carefully. But she clearly doesn't. He seemed to agree. Let her think what she wants, he replied, his voice firm yet gentle. I am here for you, Mia. I like being here with you. The air between them thickened again, charged with unspoken words and possibilities. Mia's pulse quickened, and she found herself inching closer to him. Ethan, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to. I want to, he interrupted, reaching out to brush a stray hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered just a moment too long, sending shivers down her spine. I don't want to let the past dictate what we could have now. The moment felt suspended, charged with an electric energy that made her heart race. What if it does? She asked, her voice wavering. Then we fight it, he said fiercely, his gaze unwavering. Together. Mia swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. Together, she echoed, a soft smile pulling at her lips. Before she could respond, the unmistakable sound of a car engine reverberated through the garden. Mia glanced up, her stomach sinking as she recognized the sleek vehicle approaching. Another interruption. Perfect timing, Ethan muttered, scowling as a familiar figure stepped out, his business partner, Ryan, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Mia, right? Ryan greeted, his gaze flitting between her and Ethan, the tension palpable. I didn't realize you were both busy. Just getting some work done, Ethan replied, a hint of irritation in his voice. Ryan raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying the casual tone. Looks like you've got company. I hope I am not interrupting. Not at all, Mia replied, forcing a smile despite the sudden conflict of emotions swelling within her. But it also seems like you've got a lot on your plate, Ryan continued, his gaze lingering too long on Ethan, his expression unreadable. We have that meeting in 30 minutes. Right, Ethan said, his voice clipped. I'll be there. As Ryan nodded and turned to leave, a sense of relief washed over Mia. But it also left a bitter aftertaste. She had been so close to crossing an invisible line with Ethan, and now that opportunity slipped further away. Sorry about that, Ethan said, his expression softening as he turned back to her. He just pushy. Mia chuckled lightly, attempting to lighten the mood. I can see that. Do you want to take a break? Ethan suggested, brushing his hands off on his pants. We could grab some lunch. I know a great cafe nearby. His stomach fluttered at the thought of spending more time with him outside the garden. But her earlier doubts crept back. I don't want to interrupt your day. You've already done so much. Mia, please, he said, stepping closer, his voice earnest. I want to do this. I'd like to share a meal with you. Okay, she replied, her heart racing at the prospect. As they made their way toward the gate, the air filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would this be a turning point for them? Or just another moment swallowed by circumstance? With Ethan by her side, Mia felt a tentative thrill building within her. Maybe, just maybe, they could navigate the storm ahead together. As they stepped through the wrought iron gates of the garden, Mia felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The moment they had shared moments earlier flickered in her mind, but the intrusion by Sophie lingered like a shadow. The potential for connection with Ethan had felt tangible, almost within reach, but now doubt danced at the edges. Where to? Ethan asked, his voice light, as they made their way down the gravel path that led toward the main road. His posture, relaxed yet attentive, sent her pulse racing. She couldn't help but notice how his tailored blazer accentuated the broadness of his shoulders. There's a little cafe just around the corner, Mia replied, trying to sound casual. It has a lovely patio, perfect for a sunny day like this. Sounds perfect, he said, falling into step beside her. The warmth radiating from him was comforting, yet exhilarating. You know, I've lived next door for years and never realized how special this place really is. Mia chuckled softly, glancing at him. And you thought it was just an overgrown jungle? More like a treasure waiting to be discovered, he countered playfully. You really like the Indiana Jones of gardens. She laughed, the sound surprising her. It felt good, almost liberating after the tension of earlier. I'll take that as a compliment, she replied, her heart lightening a little. As they reached the cafe, the enticing aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped them. Mia glanced at Ethan as he held the door open for her as she felt a flutter of warmth. Thank you, sir, she teased, stepping inside. Only the best for the lady, he quipped, his eyes twinkling with mischief. They found a table on the sun-drenched patio, surrounded by blooming flowers that mirrored the vibrant colors of the garden. The cafe was cozy, its ambience inviting. Ethan ordered a latte while Mia opted for herbal tea, her heart racing at the prospect of being alone with him and no past shadows lurking nearby. "Do you come here often?" Ethan asked, leaning back in his chair, his expression curious. "I used to," she admitted, stirring her tea absently. "But since my grandmother, since she passed, I've been a little hesitant to revisit places that remind me of her." Ethan's gaze softened, understanding flickering in his eyes. "That makes sense. It can be hard to face those memories, but maybe it is time to create new ones." His words struck a chord deep within her. "I suppose you're right. I've been so focused on restoring the garden that I haven't thought about how I can enjoy it too." "Exactly," he said, leaning in slightly, his voice earnest. "It is important to find joy in the journey, not just the end result." She nodded, feeling a connection form between them, a shared understanding of loss and the desire for renewal. "I appreciate that you see beyond the surface. Most people only see the wildflowers and weeds." "Maybe they're missing the beauty of the struggle," he said, a hint of admiration in his tone. "Every garden has its battles, but those battles make the blooms even more precious." A silence settled between them, comfortable and warm, filled with unspoken words. The energy shifted, and Mia felt her cheeks heat as she caught Ethan's gaze flickering to her lips for a fleeting moment before meeting her eyes again. "Have you ever thought about what comes after the garden's revival?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Not really," she admitted, the honesty rolling off her tongue naturally. "I've been so consumed with bringing it back to life, I haven't considered what I want it to become. Maybe I need to let go of the past and envision a future." Ethan's expression was thoughtful. "What if we planted something new together, a new beginning both for the garden and for you?" Mia's heart skipped at the suggestion. "You mean like starting fresh with new plants? Or even a new project?" he suggested, leaning closer. "I don't know where this is going to lead, but I am willing to explore it with you." She swallowed, the weight of his words settling around them. "Could this be more than just gardening?" "I do like that," she responded softly, her heart racing at the prospect. Just then, their drinks arrived, slicing through the momentary tension. As she took a sip of her tea, she noticed Ethan's gaze linger on her, an intensity that sent butterflies fluttering in her stomach. "Tell me more about your grandmother," he urged, genuine interest coloring his tone. Mia smiled wistfully, her heart warming at the thought of her grandmother. She was a fierce woman, full of life and laughter. She had this way of making everything feel magical, even the simplest things. Ethan leaned in, captivated. "Like what?" "Like how she would tell stories about every flower in the garden, their meanings, their histories. It felt like we were part of something bigger." "Sounds like she had a gift," he said, his gaze unwavering. "Have you thought about writing down those stories, keeping her legacy alive?" Mia felt a swell of emotion, the idea resonating deeply. "I hadn't considered that. I could write about the garden and the memories we shared. It would bring her spirit into the world, even if she can't be here physically." Ethan nodded, enthusiasm lighting up his features. "And I'd be happy to help with that. Imagine creating a journal of Mia's Eden, a place where all those stories can blossom." Her heart raced at the thought of sharing such a personal project with him. "I do like that, Ethan." As they spoke, the world outside melted away, the cafe fading into a backdrop for the connection that continued to grow between them. For the first time since her grandmother's passing, Mia felt the weight of sadness lift, replaced by the thrill of possibility. But just as the moment felt right, a commotion at the entrance caught her attention. She turned to see Sophie arriving again, this time with a group of friends in tow. The atmosphere shifted, tension creeping back in as Sophie's eyes settled on the two of them. "Ethan," Sophie called, her voice bright yet laced with an edge. "I see you found someone to keep you company." Mia's heart sank, embarrassment rushing through her. She could feel Ethan stiffening beside her as she quickly glanced away to hide her discomfort. "Hey, Sophie," Ethan replied, his tone cool. "What brings you back?" "Oh, just checking to see how things are going," she replied, her gaze flitting between them. "I didn't realize you were busy." The words dripped with insincerity, and Mia could sense the underlying challenge. "Just catching up," Ethan said firmly, his eyes narrowing slightly. Mia felt small under Sophie's scrutinizing gaze, an unwelcome sense of insecurity creeping in. She could hear the unspoken tension crackling in the air like a storm waiting to break. "Right," Sophie said, her tone turning saccharine. "I just wanted to remind you about that meeting. You know how important it is." "Yeah, I am aware," Ethan replied tersely, but his eyes flicked briefly to Mia, silently seeking her reassurance. Mia forced a smile, trying to appear unfazed, but the weight of Sophie's presence was suffocating. "It's fine, Ethan, you should go. Meetings are important." "No, He started, but she interrupted. "Really, I am okay," she insisted, trying to sound casual. "It's been nice talking, but I wouldn't want to get in the way of your business." "Are you sure?" His brow furrowed, concern flashing across his features. "Absolutely," she replied, her voice more confident than she felt. "We can always finish our conversation later." Ethan hesitated, clearly torn. "Okay, if you insist," he finally said. With a heavy heart, Mia watched as he stood, his focus shifting back to Sophie, and she felt the air between them cool. The warmth of their earlier connection felt distant now, slipping through her fingers like sand. "Let us go," Sophie urged, her tone dismissive as she turned on her heel, leading the group back toward the exit. Once they were out of earshot, Mia took a deep breath, her heart aching. "Sorry about that, I didn't mean." "It is not your fault," Ethan interjected, his voice firm but gentle. "She doesn't dictate what we share." "I know, but it feels complicated," she admitted, her heart heavy. "It is complicated," he said, his gaze steady. "But I want to sort through it with you. I don't want to lose sight of what we have." "Me neither," she whispered, feeling vulnerable and exposed. Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The warmth of his skin against hers sent a jolt of electricity through her. "Then let us not let anyone come between us." Their eyes locked, and for a moment the world around them faded. Mia felt the tension simmering beneath the surface, the spark of connection igniting once more. But it was also a reminder of the complexities that lay ahead. "Together?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Together," he affirmed, squeezing her hand gently. Mia smiled, allowing hope